morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you follow me from, wherever you watch me from. It's with me again, Ibrahim Asanko. I am the host of the Dialectic Space Podcast. And today I have the pleasure of having with me Yunus Hydara, a Gambian based in the United Kingdom, who is very vocal in the Gambian political and social spaces. And today I'm excited to talk to him about his life, his politics, his political leanings, and things that really keep him up at night. So we're definitely going to get into it. There's absolutely a lot to discuss, and I'm also happy to share that Yunus is from Brikama, and I am from Brikama, so that relationship is already there.
Team
And
Breakout.
and additionally, too, I met Yunus when he came to Seattle a couple of years ago. And, it was absolutely wonderful because prior to that, I've always been following him and his political commentary and his philanthropic work that he was doing at the time online, and also his politics too. So it was really wonderful to talk to him. And interestingly, at the time, Yunus was a member of the UDP. So and funnily to also add that at the time it was Yunus and I and Walker Siddiq Kambe, I think, put our together, right? And today I'm going to be talking to Yunus while Yunus is on the other side. But that's the beauty and essence of our humanity and our existence too. We had an incredible time. And so I'm really happy today to be talking to you, on this platform. Welcome to the Space Podcast, Yunus.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Like you stated, it's good to be here. And we met last time I was in Seattle for the UDP convention. I wasn't able to meet you, but we met the last time before that. And it was good to meet you. I'm a fan of your show. And I'm glad to be here. My greetings to the audience and to yourself, and I look forward to a fruitful conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Yunus. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me, and thank you all to our audience too, who are here and who have been here with us since we started this journey. And like I always tell you, this would not have been possible without all of your support and encouragement and your feedbacks. And I'll just like to encourage all of you because I'm aware that most of our followers, especially on YouTube, are not subscribed followers. So please consider subscribing if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook. That way, you're supporting us in terms of this work that we're doing. But today, we are going to get into it. Like I said, there's a lot to get to. There's a lot to dissect. There's a lot to discuss. And so, I would like us to begin from really your very formative years of your life by walking us through what sort of household you came from in the Gambia. Were you, in fact, born in the Gambia? What sort of schools did you went to? What sort of household? What sort of values were instilled in you when you were growing up? What was the environment like? All of it, we're really curious to know.
Thank you very much. So my name is Yunus, and yes, I was born and raised in Gambia, specifically Brikama, where you are from. So Team Brikama. Yeah, I was born in Brikama, Nema, and was raised there. I did my education at Kabafita Primary School,
Oh, I went
and
there
then
too.
went on. You went there too?
I
Good.
was head boy.
One thing about my time in Kabafita, though, I was supposed to. No, I was at nursery school. I was supposed to go to primary one. But my mom thinks I should do one more year in nursery school. So some of my friends all went into primary one, and I was behind. So that kind of still hurts me. But yeah, as I went to Brikama Junior Secondary School. My mom, my dad passed away when I was very little. I don't think I was even 8 when he passed away. So I was mainly raised by my mom. So I'm a mommy's boy. That's why I always say on Mother's Day, I will quote Albert Einstein's quotation saying, "All that I am or ever hope to be, I owe it to my angel mother, my hero." That's because even before my dad was passed away, I had a very vague memory of him and the time we spent together because he's from Mauritania and he had businesses there and he has family there and also in Gambia. So during those days when transportation was poor, communication infrastructure was poor as well. So we weren't in touch much, even though the limited time that I spent with him means a lot, and I still cherish some of the glimpses of those memories, even though I don't have a full recollection. I don't even think I know the image of him. When I think about him, I can only see him from here down. So I was mainly raised by my mom. My mom bringing us up, me and my brothers and sister, was a bit of a challenge for her. She, being a single mom and having to play both mommy and daddy roles to make sure there's a stable environment for us growing up. She wasn't educated, but what baffles me was uh, how she knows some important things about life that I was able to dissect later on when I started to achieve higher education. So that always baffles me. I'll go into it in a minute, but so my mom is Jawara. She's related to the former president Dawda. So Dawda is my granddad. But after my dad passed, my mom, she was basically on her own. But my dad left many good friends who supported her, worked with her, giving her goods to sell, and she keeps the profits and give the rest of them. And one of them has a monthly allowance for me and my brother, and we'd always have our allowances when Eid comes. We always have allowance for that. So I'm much grateful for those kind gestures growing up and how they managed to support my mom through those formidable years. And but I have elder brothers as well who all supported her in providing that safe, stable, and disciplined environment um, for us growing up. One of the key memories, I didn't have those memories, but I hear my brother talk about it. That's when from the 1981, the coup d'etat, Kukwe Sambajang coup d'etat. My mom and my brothers and sister were arrested. Um, Not because they've done anything, but because they are related to the president. And it was, based on their recollections, it was a very tough moment, period. My brother wrote a book about it, about their experience. At the time, my mom was pregnant with Yunus, and they were supposed to be executed, apparently. It was reflecting on it was a bit difficult. The only reason, based on their explanation, was they didn't end up getting along amongst themselves, and they decided basically to postpone their execution and take them where they keep rest of the folks who are supposed to be executed. Um, so, but eventually, before they get to that, the Senegalese intervention took place. So I was lucky because that could have been a premature exit of Yunus Hydra in this world. Even I was reflecting, thinking whether they were actually gonna go ahead with the execution, even though they were barbaric and they've killed many people. I think 1,000 people died in that coup. But thankfully, I'm here. I was thinking, even if the execution did not go ahead, the trauma and the problem that happened could have just got my mom to have a miscarriage of me. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm thankful for life. I just hope nobody in this world go through that kind of trauma. But growing up in Brikama, I was uh, education wise, I was slightly moderate, slightly above average, but that's mainly because of I was more focused on other things like football. I like football instead of studying, so football takes a lot of my time. But my mom always makes sure my childhood experience is very structured, which is every day there's a routine of things that I would do, which will include school. Before going to school, we have to first of all learn the Quran. My mom had a dara. My mom my ustads at school were amazed when they know like she's the only female with a dara. So that she was teaching us, the kids, and some other ladies on our street who were interested. So I'll go to Dara, go to school, help her out in her shop, studies and time for football and things like that. So my main, apart from things that I'm conditioned to do, including Dara and studies, and I mostly enjoy football and kafanya kuno demo.
Ah.
Kata last peri fayon mulo dia so that's what I like to do. My mom didn't like me going to do it, but she will beat me. But that wouldn't stop me from sneaking away the next day and go and do that. But overall, my childhood is very stable, and I'm thankful compared to what I see other people. My mom tried a lot to make sure there is a stable environment. She will control things like what I hear, what I see, what I. So it's just later that I understood that these are very important because what you hear, what you see, the kind of environment you are exposed to have a propensity to stick to your subconscious mind and kind of influence your behavior. So she controls that a lot and makes sure we have a stable environment for growth. So it was overall a typical childhood, but very regulated, very structured, and very stable. And I'm thankful for that.
So, would you say that, suddenly you were from a very privileged family growing up, considering that, your parents, a lot of other kids, like I take example of myself, I didn't have the luxury of having my mom be so heavily invested. She didn't even go to school. And going to school was hard. Even paying for school was hard. And you grew up in this
Yeah.
family where your mom is related to the former president of the Gambia, which I think by different definition perhaps would be the classical definition of what it means to be privileged, because you grew up in this power-like household. But I'm curious, in terms of how was that like? Because nobody decides what family you want to be born in or grow up in. But obviously, when you grow up in a family like that, where the president of the country or the former president of the country is your grandfather, that must have some impact on you in terms of how you understand power and politics. What is your conception of this growing up, knowing fully well Jawara was this man who was president of the Gambia?
My mom, like I said, even though her relation to the corridors of power came more as a burden to her than a privilege, for the sense that she would often hear um, rallies, radios, with folks calling calling her dad all sorts of names. And benefit wise, there was no benefit for her because she did not benefit anything as far as money or privilege is concerned. My mom, knowing her, she was mainly associated with my dad's side, and those are the folks who were supporting her economically, helping her with goods to sell and then give them their stuff back and keep her profit where she used to pay for our school fees and stuff like that. So while doing that, some of my big brothers traveled and then they started to assist her, and then she started to be more settled and more relaxed. And when the bigger brothers take over, but as far as power is concerned, I was in. So my mom's dad was actually Sirifo Jawara, whose younger brother is Sadauda from the same mom. So if there was any power privilege, I'll say for me it came through him, Sirifo Jawara. That's not even like any, because he also was a bit well off already. He was one of the first folks who went to Sierra Leone and involved in some trade, diamond trade and stuff. So he wasn't involved in privilege, but he is the one who would take me to State House. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
All right, so he'll be the one who would take me to State House for leisure and stuff. I recall that fully well, and I remember one time I was saying good things about Banjul, how happy I used to be when I drive past Denton Bridge and into Banjul, and I was like, heck, Banjul was the first place I've had my first spaghetti. Yeah, but yeah, those were state house.
Yeah.
It didn't. It was very minimal as well, and he would also sometimes take me to a weekend at the garden, sometimes with Sadauda, or even take me to Sadauda's rallies, political rallies and stuff. So my mom did not. I remember maybe once or twice when my mom took me to the state house to visit Sadauda and say hello and stuff. But it's mainly my grandfather, who was my mom's dad, who was Sadauda's big brother from the same mom and dad. But I don't think Sadauda's family had much privilege or money or anything. That's why I can get my hands up and say Sadauda is not corrupt. His salaries is where he helped his family members. Because I remember my mom told me once he went to Sadauda to ask him to buy shoes for Eid, Samato, for one of my brothers. Sadada had to go to his own shoe collections and get a spare shoe
Mm.
for him because when I reflect on that and current leaders from Jammeh and Barrow, I because I know those people's extended families don't even need to go to him for anything. Whatever they is there is or is readily available somewhere or in their own bank account. So um, I respect Sadauda for that. The fact that he was. There are parts of folks within my family who somehow benefit from it, from his presidency, but that's indirectly from him, and that's not my immediate families, but other cousins and stuff who use somehow their association with corridors of power and use that influence to kind of get ahead and get some wealth from that, but not from my mom's side.
So I read Karaba, brilliant book by the way, and he
Mhm.
made a very important case, especially in terms of his family, his relationships, from Barajali all the way to Banjul, and his presidency as well. And one thing
Mhm.
that all of us can agree on is the fact that he operated in a very difficult time for the country, considering we just got a independence, Republican status, and he had to operate much like other African countries as well, what they were experiencing. And so
Yeah.
people have different feelings as to the tenure of Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, and granted, as any other leader in the world. But what is your view of it? And usually, when people argue that Sir Dawda for 30 years haven't done much for the country, how do you receive some of these criticisms, considering that this is a man that you perhaps know and perhaps study too, more than a lot of people who are just interested in sort of seeing structural developments that ideally that Gambia did, for example? How do you receive or accept some of these
Um,
criticisms?
for me, like because of when I came into Gambian politics, first of all, I came as an activist, and that kind of shaped my political engagement. So because of that, being an activist, I don't like comment too much on Sadauda's history because I just feel like I'm conflicted the fact that there's a strong relation, even though I have my opinions and I almost always express that. But I left the public to critique his track record, and I'm kind of unapologetic about it because I believe a public servant should not be immune to any sort of scrutiny. If you decide to put yourself out there to make decisions for the public, your decisions have consequences. Whatever decision you make could get people killed, could get people hungry, and so it's a messy situation. Even though, like when Salah passed away, a few days after his funeral, I've heard some criticism coming out from his with his legacy, and people starting to question those people. They say the people are mourning, but I made a comment on Facebook. I was like, no public servant is immune to criticism or scrutiny. Even though we love them, they could leave and pass, but their record would always remain in the public discourse. And so that's my philosophy. I have soft spot for him. I love him dearly, and some of the things I hear could hurt me, but I try to have that thick skin and ignore it so that it's his decision to come into public life and to play that role. And that within that, personally, I wouldn't let him stay that long in power. That is significantly contrary to my worldview and political belief. So, but I was too little to even understand what was going on. So, but I think he's a good man. He has good vision for Gambia. He's a consummate Democrat and a champion for human rights. What I also tend to see people overlook is to understand the constraints that he also inherited from the British. He inherited Gambia when I don't think Gambia's GDP was even up to $1 million. The human capital was about 500,000. Very little accomplished folks educationally. So it was a challenge for him, but he took the Gambia at a state where it was mainly characterized as an improbable nation,
Okay.
where the British who gave it to him believed that it cannot be viable. The country should be added to Senegal and just be a province of Senegal. That's the only way Gambia can be viable. But here we are, the country is still alive and kicking. Sadauda's approach to development is different from what Jame and Barrow saw it philosophically. That's what I believe. He believed in ground up. He believes in substance, getting people trying to create an environment where people can be. It also coincided with a moment where people are very content with the little that they have, and they have that stability. He created institutions for education and provide scholarship for folks to go abroad to study when they are accomplished. I also understand he was a very good advocate to get people to enroll into school because many people, especially in the provinces, were very adamant to send their kids to school because they believe education was basically brainwashing people and getting them to change their religion, to go into Christianity, where most of the prominent schools were kind of run by Christian mercenaries. But he sometimes most of his campaign or tours within the country, the dominant conversation would be to encourage people to go into school. But generally, I would just allow public to discuss what
Of course,
Sadauda legacy means to them. But I know overall the public love him and they are very pleased with him. I've seen examples of that, and I'm grateful because I remember when Barrow's inauguration day, I had breakfast with him, Sadauda, and then eventually me and Lady Chilel and others went to the stadium to attend Barrow's. I thought he was gonna come anyway because I think the public was desperate to see him at that point. But he didn't end up coming. But the welcome that from the ordinary Gambians receiving us at the entrance of the stadium towards the VIP section where we sat was overwhelming, and that tells me a lot about the affection that Gambian has, and the fact that I was also very proud that on his funeral, and I also made a post about it. I said I'm very proud of Sadauda. Even whilst he is no more, the life that he lived is bringing the country as one, which is what I observed.
Now, you also did talk about the fact that you came into politics by a way of being an activist, right? And you did also talk about, sort of this environment or household that you were raised in and the influence that had on you. And I'm just curious, in terms of your eventual positioning or positionality into politics, what was this informed by? Right? Because I think that's also important for people to understand. Like, is it since you were young, you were always like interested in the idea of power, for example, or social justice or policy? What was this informed by? Was there a special moment in your life where something happened, or you were just aware of what was going on in the Gambia and you made a conscious decision to say, I am not going to be silent anymore. I am going to be an active participant in the affairs of my
Yeah.
country?
So growing up, I wasn't political. I know politics was around me a lot because UDP, my neighbors and were all UDP, and my mom was also Dabo. So I wasn't. So it was like a natural place for you, UDP. I always only voted in Gambian politics elections once, and I voted for Lawyer Dabo. I sometimes you see this excitement where I'll be walking with my friends around and see Dabo's convoy and just run after it, chanting and all that. I've done all that, but I wasn't very conscious about what was going on, apart from the fanfares and some things that I hear my because there's this guy called Dai. He every day he comes to our place. He will tell my mom. He'll promise my mom that next week Jammeh will not be there. And sometimes he'll come and say, Lawyer Dabo wrote a letter to him and told him to resign. So so I could pick up these little things, and my mom would get excited. But I wasn't. I also remember the sadness I felt when the '97 Constitution was passed. I didn't even know what a constitution was, but just the fact that the people around me don't want it to pass, so I was somehow devastated. But obviously, growing up, when Jammeh took office, there are things that I saw that I believe were not right. some of these killings, for example, I think Dede Hydra of blessed memory, no, Korosi, when they announced his death, my mom automatically said it's not true. That story was false. He was killed. So I could see these kind of problems in my mom, and that automatically gets transferred to me as well. But I didn't start talking until I think around 2010. I went to Minnesota, Minneapolis. My brother who lives there has a wedding, and I went to the wedding. And Coach Pasamajo was the um, was the MC at the wedding. It's the first time I met him or even heard of him. So after the next, we talked briefly there, but then the next day we met somewhere for barbecue and we were having a chat. Then we added each other on Facebook, and I started to see what he writes. That's when I was aware of Freedom Radio before that, but I wasn't a listener. I don't know what gets it, but then eventually I started to listen to Freedom Radio, and then gradually I started to speak, say things on Facebook. But then I'll say something, and then people will start inboxing me or calling me. Then I would delete it, and then eventually. But the main at one point, the main issue that got stopped me from speaking was because I wasn't too confident about my writing skills and my public speaking skills. So those were the major impediments of me coming vocal on social media to discuss issues. So I eventually, following Freedom Radio conversation, which kind of coincided into me going into university and starting to build my writing skills basically, and eventually I started just writing, but mostly in the background. I contribute mostly in the background, but when my brother was involved in the coup in 2014, 30th December, and things happened, that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I didn't care how I write or whatever. I just started to I just started to say how I think and how badly things are in Gambia. And eventually, the more I do it, the more passionate I become. The more it somehow gets a toll on you. Though sometimes I've seen there were occasions late at night when I will just sit and cry for no reason. But then in the struggle, we had some good family of people, strugglers, where we look out for each other. And there are folks, some ladies in the struggle who were very good at consoling. They are my good sisters. I'll phone them and we have a chat, and they'll always make me forget about my worries and focus. But there were times when I was so down, thinking that I'll never go to my country. I'll be stuck here, but it's still worth it. And if the fight become successful, and Gambia will go forward, and everything will fall into place, which later I've learned that it's not the case. The problem was deeper than I thought. It wasn't just Yaya Jame, it was the problem is deep into the psyche of our people, which tells me the fight will always have to continue. So I continued on that pace even after we had a change of government. But eventually, what I kind of learned is uh, what talking on social media, radios, and stuff. Your message falls on deaf ears. People will agree with you, but it makes no changes about things that they want to do. I That's when eventually I decided I can join the politics and be part of the process in effecting the kind of change that I want to see, rather than stand on the sidelines and speaking to people who would just ignore you at best.
So now that we've laid the foundation of that, I don't want to move you to something else. So I'm going to stick.
Okay.
I'm still going to talk to you about the politics bit of it. I think it was in 2018, 19, maybe earlier. The timeline may be skewed a little bit, but what I want to ask you is, you decided publicly, you made a post about it that you're going to join United Democratic Party, that you're a member of the United Democratic Party. Now, there's obviously a lot of political parties in the Gambia at the time. Um, why UDP?
So, like I said, first of all, UDP, I was accustomed to UDP growing up in Brikama. People like prominent people like Sajo Kunjan Sane, of blessed memory. She was my neighbor. So, politics was always around me, and it was UDP. Um, so, I could think that if there is a one political party I could say I've been affiliated with, even though not formally, it would be UDP. I was sympathetic to their cause. Even before I joined them, there are occasions that I've supported the party financially and joined, like, for example, when Solo Sandeng was killed, I organized protests, and those were crucial times of my academic career. So I was on the verge of writing my honors dissertation paper after the honors project. So, but I had to stop all that to be on the radio and fighting for Solo and the family, and also organizing protests at the Scottish Parliament. So I've been there for UDP, but when UDP went into government, I wasn't. I had some fundamental disagreement with the party. And I still stand by those things like not championing the cause of the victim, even though the victims were the ones that it's the back of the victims that we had that change of government. We were advocating about the victims having some sort of respite. And so I was calling out Dawda to use the UDP dominated parliament to formulate policies that would provide respite for the victims, medical support, financial and psychosocial support. And I didn't see that happening. There are certain priorities also in terms of reforms that I didn't see Dabo pushing. So what the reforms, the amendments I've seen were mainly to secure their positions, getting the upper term cap off, and parliaments having to secure. So I see that priority, and I didn't take them to be serious people. But I must admit, after UDP came out of government, I gradually forget all that because I think I'm a forgiving person. So I gradually it fade out of my memory gradually. So I started to see UDP as a no as I used to see them. And also another thing that also played a role was Sadauda's book, because I read Sadauda's book, and it kind of got me acquainted to my root. He talks about the struggle of people of the protectorates, and how they were first marginalized from decision making, and then how they eventually struggled to to mobilize and form a political force and do things. And even though UDP wasn't PPP, but I see them largely to be associated with these same people that were marginalized. So I even told my friend at one point, I was like, I'm reading Sadauda's book, and the more I read it, the more sympathetic I become for UDP. And I don't know, because I think somehow I hate this folks. I don't like how they messed up when they
Hmm.
could have done the best thing for Gambia. I
Yeah.
find it to be inexcusable. And even after I joined them, there will be moments where some of the things that happened will flash. I'll have a flashback of it, and then I'll be somehow unhappy with the party. So eventually, here we are. We've parted ways again, even though I don't know where we go from here, but it seemed to be a very bitter divorce that we're going through at the moment.
We're gonna get to that certainly. But
Okay.
was there particular individuals that you would like to credit as being people who are hugely influential in your decision to join UDP? Because certainly Jawara's books, you've established that. And on the background, there's always people that want to get somewhat influential people in the government context. Because at the time also, you were doing a lot of work, not only public commentary. And I'm also
Mhm.
curious as to, because when I was doing research for this interview, part of a lot of what is online about you is your philanthropy. Is you raising funds for people who are in need, either medical support, either it was the very special and widely admired Mafuji Sonko, my distant uncle who came to the TRRC, and the money that you raised for him. But if you would address that specifically, what informed that philanthropy, but also were there individuals in the UDP or outside of UDP that played an incredible role in convincing you to come public and to use your platform to push UDP's agenda?
So going back to the philanthropy, I appreciate first of all the donors that always support the cause that I initiate. I owe them a debt of gratitude and their support. And yeah, I initiated a few fundraisers before and after Mafuji's case. But Mafuji one has seemed to be the highlight of the philanthropic work that I've done, and is also somehow it was influential in Gambian people voting me to win the philanthropic award that I won back in Gambia. So I'm indebted to them for their cause. So my Fuji's case was unique because it was both triggered by a subjective and an objective reasoning. Subjectively, I had this instant connection with him, seeing him on TV. He has a good sense of humor, and I feel sorry for him at the same time because he mentioned it's I don't know if it's the actual day was his birthday. It was mentioned there, so immediately that also immediately connection even stronger because I looked at him. I was like, this guy possibly never um, celebrated a birthday. I'm pretty sure in his life. But what is unique about Mafuji, after everything that he's been through and everything that he's lost, this is the guy who was jailed unintentionally, actually. He was forgotten for 9 years in prison. So he came out, he lost everything. Whatever he had behind was lost. His salaries were all lost. He has to start from fresh from nowhere. But then what is so inspiring about him that I found was he would come out of that misery and put a smile in somebody else's face. To me, that is remarkable. And I think uh, the world would be a much better place with people like Mafuji. But objectively, I at the time I see him that he is the most innocent victim who has testified at TRRC at that point because all the people who testified before him were because the whole problem that we were having that PRRC was due to policy and institutional failure of the PPP regime. So all the folks who were
APRC, you meant.
testifying
APRC, you meant.
were
Oh,
no,
you.
because they took over.
Mhm.
The coup were taking over from PPP
Okay.
officials. So yeah, Jame took over. I know. I'm not sympathetic to them, but I know certain decisions that were made culminated the blatant corruption, the disregard for the plight of the people that was evident at the time, and the policy of bringing foreign forces to kind of be the head of our military, and those people were basically serving disrespectfully in some occasions, and also the soldiers that came back from the Liberia, I think, from the peacekeeping mission, were not adequately financially compensated. So overall, the issue was institutional failure in policy, and custodians of these institutions and policymakers who testified before Mafuji, I saw that do not have cannot be exonerated completely from the mess that happened. But Mafuji, on the other hand, and had no role to play in all that. It was his day off. I don't know what he was doing around the barracks area, and he was called to drive a group of people somewhere. And he, being a loyal soldier, and obviously he sworn to took an oath to be loyal to the officers who were stationed above him. So he basically just stick with those oaths by involving, and then it ended up costing him 9 years of his life. And his testimony, when I did the fundraising, before I settle everything to give the money to him, the TRRC were on the face of junglers testifying. So the country was going through a very dark days around those days when we were hearing the gruesome killing that was happening, and people being strangled in cold blood and dying. So I think because of that, the Mafuji fundraiser became such a hit, just because it kind of elevated the morale and the spirit of the country at the time. The people, many people lost hope in Gambia. The fact that a Gambian citizen can do commit such atrocities against a fellow Gambian. But Mafuji, the gesture kind of played to the Gambians to know that actually all hope is not lost. There is evidence of kindness here. Here's a guy who's lost everything, had nothing to fall back on, and all of a sudden he managed to get this amount of money to at least start somewhere with his life, and it also enticed others to also do more. SRFile gave him a plot of land, and many other people were donating in different ways. People were calling me, volunteering. Some truck drivers will say, I will give him this. I will take the sand to his place. Some will tell me I will. So it triggered a deep inspiration of kindness amongst Gambians, and I think that was a good thing. Especially, it was very timely as well, and because of that, I was grateful to be able to uplift the morale and the spirit of the country at such difficult times. And then
So
going back to okay, if you
UDP,
have
yeah.
follow-up question on this, I can go to UDP.
No, no, absolutely. That's okay. No, I was just gonna say, at the time I was at the TRRC too. I think the first time I ever reached out to you was during that period, prior to us meeting when you came here. I mean, later on I met you when
Yeah.
you came to Seattle here, but I remember that vividly. And then Alaji Barrow and the team had to coordinate with you to make sure Mafuji is settled. So man, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, and I hope Mafuji is doing
Thank you.
very well. Are you still in contact with him?
I've tried him. I think he's got a new number, but when I go to Gambia, I'll go and visit him again. The other day, I went to this place. I didn't even know that's around his home, and my friend told me, "Do you know Mafuji lives just across the road?" I was like, "Wow, let me call him." So I called him, and then all of a sudden, I saw him coming out with full speed, coming to see me. But that was great. It was the first time I met him in person, and we really had a good time. We had a lot of laugh and attire and stuff. But he is fine. He is a very strong man. who have a very positive approach to life. So whatever happens to Mafuji, just know one thing, that the guy is doing fine and is in high spirit, because that's his nature.
Cool. So moving on, I asked you again. I asked you, and I'm gonna ask again. Individuals who behind the scenes were working perhaps day and night to get Yunus, into UDP, the very widely admired Yunus. And I always joke about this. I said sometimes I feel like your very gentle candor and demeanor do not do justice to your strong willness and robust intellectual engagement on social media. Because if most people look at you, they're like, "Oh, this is the guy that does the fundraising stuff. He's very kind. He's very humble." But when it comes to pound for pound intellectual rigor and discussion on social media, you don't shy away from it. I've seen that several times. And so I think any political movement would love to have you on their side. So I'm saying that to basically find out who were those individuals who are like, we need this individual on our side.
So UDP, being from Brikama, most of the people I speak to are UDP folks. My friends are all UDP basically. But there's one friend, he's older than me, Buba Sane, Bob, I call him. When I was criticizing the UDP throughout while they were in government, he never gave up on me. He didn't identify to me as a UDP member, but what he does, and he also tries not to be seen as trying to censor me or antagonizing me. But what he does is, anytime I say something, and or anytime he thinks I'll react to this kind of stuff, he'll always call me to give me the context. So the
Mhm.
context is something that's his only strategy. Either directly or indirectly, he will try to give me broaden my understanding of what just happened, so that I can be more measured with my what I'll say. And but I don't listen to it. As activists, I go more with my heart. I think also when I was kind of drifting, and some people seem to sense that, because there are some prominent Gambians who called me to say, I think you are going to UDP. That's what I'm hearing. But if you go to UDP, I will cut all ties with you. So there was one prominent journalist who said that to me. But I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that I have to be fairer with UDP. I was getting more sympathy for UDP. I don't know. But then Karamba Ture was also someone who's influenced. I didn't speak to him. I think actually he wasn't happy with me about things that I've been writing prior, because we were all in the struggle before, and we have soft spot for each other. We have that liking of each other. But he didn't stop me about what I was saying for UDP. But at one point, I think that was an important trigger for me when he came up with an initiative to kind of create a policy that would allow the government to increase the budget of agriculture to a certain amount. And he wanted to create some sort of a pressure group to get the government to adopt that strategy. As it was a time when I came from university, I studied some scientific ways of um, agriculture, how you can boom agriculture scientifically. So I was kind of tense at the moment to introduce those kind of strategies to our agricultural field. So it just came out of me that I had to announce it, and because I'm that person that I don't hide what's in my mind and how I feel about things. So I just said the more I will be, if I'm going to be effective in the UDP, I have to let them know that I'm part of the UDP, and I'm gonna push. And also at that point, justice was also very important to me. And so I kind of feel that if there is one political party that would dispense justice for the victims, it will be UDP. Even though I've had an initial discouragement about how I believe that they didn't prioritize the victims. But I think if they have an exclusive UDP government, that will be part of their plan to give adequate compensation for the victims and dispense justice for the perpetrators. But then within the UDP, I've seen things that continue to happen, like people from APRC, prominent APRC members, taking leadership role within the party. I wasn't dismissive of anybody going into politics and joining political parties, even whatever parties you are. But people who tend to have a record of economic crime, human right abuses, simply cannot be my leader. That's in any party. They have to go through certain level of to pay for what they done and to show that they have remorseful for what they did. I didn't see it on them, and because of that, I really started to kind of bit uncomfortable within the UDP.
And obviously, that is an important aspect. I think we do talk about this mostly in various political parties, battle, for political expediency and for the purpose of winning in terms of numbers, absorb members of, APRC or former, cronies of Jambe. UDP also had individuals like that in their party. In fact, recently, it's looking increasingly likely that UDP and APRC, I don't know how it's going to come about, but they are causing up to each other. Let me just put it that way.
Well,
But while you join the party, besides that very conspicuous issue of people who are complicit, either directly or indirectly, in Jambe's term as president of the Gambia and some of the allegations that indicted his tenure, what were some of the institutional problems that the party was also undergoing that you were observing that you didn't know when you were outside, and how serious were some of these things that the party needed to change?
so when I joined the party, I found an entrenched culture of how the party is run, and I didn't want to challenge that much. I know that one thing that I'm grateful for is Lawyer Dabo had an open door policy for Yunus. I can phone him and discuss things with him, even though I don't. And it's very rarely, I think once or twice, that I call to discuss, because that's out of respect. I believe if I have anything to ask, I should sit with him. I've demonstrated that when he came to London, I spoke to Yakumba Jada before that and asked, I would like to see Dabo, and she said, okay, I'll let her know and when you come. And then I flew to London to sit with him and discuss. So I felt see myself a bit conflicted in the sense that if there is anything that I am not happy with, I have the channel of communication to speak directly to Honorable Dab, and I must also say he is somebody who also respects me as a person. So, but still. The power dynamics was a bit strange. Like people in the periphery of the party, the outside, those people I really love just because of the love and admiration that they showed me, especially when I initially joined the party and there was a meeting in France, Paris. So I flew to Paris to attend that. The kind of love that I received at that moment was astonishing. So, but so it was like people at the periphery, Dabo in the middle, but then those around the immediacy of Dabo were a bit funny. I don't know. They were a bit strange. They weren't as welcoming and as open-minded, open arms, welcoming me with open arms. So I've often reflected on that, but I couldn't come up with the explanation. But
Was there
nevertheless, the party value.
Was this implicit or explicit? Was it where you keep picking cues, or were they making some of these things public so much so that you are like, yeah, I don't think this person will, appreciates Yunus coming in here.
No, I think they were just quiet
Subtle.
about it,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
very open, but it was subtle. So there's no argument about what Yunus does, who Yunus is. But at first I was thinking maybe it's because of the buzz that kind of generated Yunus joining, because many people around there were made by the party, but Yunus was self-made and he joined the UDP, and that kind of could be intimidating. I don't know, but
What,
uh, yeah.
what do you mean? What do you mean when you say many people were made by the party?
I've seen certain people who rise to prominence because they're maybe either their dad or somebody was the founding member, or they were that will give them a post within the party, that kind of gave them that prominence within the party. But Yunus came with his prominence, with his audience, with people who value his opinion and are able to be swayed by his judgment.
Did you ever, and to that point too, did you ever feel as though you were in the party, but you are not fully or wholly in the party just because of this subtle or subliminal non?
No, no,
Okay.
I just saw that as something that would correct itself with time. That in relationships will be better once we start to work together and stuff. But then they started to see me more of a troublemaker, and that kind of make things worse. And so I think at one point I was considered to be part of the national executive. Uh, that was also changed. I wasn't given any reason, but mainly one of the contributions that I thought I would be able to do was to be part of the team that wrote the health manifesto, and even joining. This is where I've envisaged would be the contribution that I would like, because I was told we will be working on the health manifesto, but if UDP government win, we will be working with the Ministry of Health in guiding in assisting to implement those policies that we were talking about. So it wasn't about being within or having a job. I wasn't looking for a job, but even I could contribute to implementing certain things remotely from the diaspora. I was gonna be well satisfied with that.
So you did mention also that some of them, characterize you as a troublemaker, which, I think to be fair, you were in fact a troublemaker eventually. You caused a lot of trouble, a lot of animosity between people in the UDP, especially when you started, an important public discourse, so much that you even read a public statement on social media to make the case as to why United Democratic Party (UDP) should move on away from a double leadership. I want us to really dive into that. Obviously this is important because it comes on the back of the formation of United Movement for Change, and some of you ended up leaving, including Talib Ahmed Ben Suda. And I think what is prominent is the fact that you and Nanama, for most Gambians, at least for most people in the UDP, I must be precise, make the case that you and Nanama basically instigated this. You basically orchestrated this apparent division that came about within UDP and members of now UMC. Walk us through this, Eunice.
Thank you very much. That's an important question. It was one of the most contentious issues. After the 2021 elections, all of us, the mood of the party, the undertone suggests the natural course of events was supposed to be a renewal. We were mostly quiet about it the first half of the since after 2021 elections, because I've not discussed it with anybody, but I thought that's what's in the minds of the party members, including the party leader himself. So eventually things will spill when the internal issues started. Something came into public, like I think was it started by Rohilo, who suggested that there's a potential coup being orchestrated within the UDP. So even that, I wasn't drawn into the conversation. I think at one point, that's where the public conversation around the subject started. And Nanama made a post. um, so Nanawa made a post. I think I'm not sure. I never discussed how that post was triggered or inspired, but I had a feeling that me and Nanawa kind of push each other a bit. So I wrote something the day before he made that post. I don't know if that kind of triggered, but I said that was after Barrow hired Savali, Dr. Csays and stuff, and made a bit of a cabinet reshuffle. And I was like, I posted, I was like, Barrow is definitely thinking ahead of the oppositions here. He's bringing strategic thinkers, real politicians close to him, and we don't even know what we want at this point. Something like that. So then the next day, Nalama made a post about how UDP needs a renewal. And then I think the next day, I also wrote a lengthy piece basically reinforcing his points as well. So it was a big discussion, but I took a step back from there, left it there, and then we went to Spain. So the Spain, prior to going Spain, politics wasn't on my mind. Even though before I go, certain people called me. Some folks who are still like massive Dabo campaigners called me before the Spain and talking to me as like you are going, but this is an anti-Talib event. That's what they were telling me. I was like, you know what? I'm not into thinking politically about this event. It happened at the back of Barrow, seriously criticizing Dabo, saying he will not leave the presidency until Dabo is dead and he see Dabo buried. That comment basically really traumatized me, because it created a mental image in my mind. Seeing Dabo, nga Dabo jala kasanke kono, ala kaburo kono, alama ajamfalala, alama sola nemani, alama sola simaya ninjata kenda. So even that day, and I don't know the last time I cried, but I cried that day. I called Davo, I prayed for him and everything, but that was just a few days to Spain, so I was mainly focused on his mental state and emotional well-being, based on that, because that was big, based on my judgment. So I went to Spain eager to see him. And I saw him the same day. We spent time together in one of his nephew's house. We had lunch. So overall, my assessment was he's in a good spirit. The issue didn't seem to affect him, and he is grateful for what how people stood up for him somehow. But when the event started, I became a bit dissatisfied based on what I'm hearing, the kind of speeches I was hearing, what I was hearing both publicly and within closed doors. So eventually, around the last meeting, after I listened to Dabo and his concluding remarks, I have a strong feeling that Dabo has made up his mind and he will run for president in 2026. And this is basically the launching of his presidential bid based on some of what his loyalists were saying. And his daughter sent some key holders and different things that basically had it written on it, Dabo 2026 spread. So eventually, the shades that I was hearing being thrown at Talib Bensouda and what Dabo. I went to my hotel room and I was sitting in my little balcony overlooking the ocean. I had some deep reflection and that was deeply inspirational. But the conclusion that I've made was the prevailing mood within the UDP has to be disrupted somehow. UDP is sleepwalking again into a complete failure, and this is going to be detrimental to the country. Country needs to be salvaged. The people who are in this with Dabo, trying to get him to stand by hook or crook, are not seeing the best interest of country. They are seeing their resentment of Talib, their own personal interest of whatever agenda they were pushing. So for me, like I said, it doesn't have to be Talib. I want, I just want a change in leadership to the next elections. I want renewal, and I've made it public many times. Whoever is chosen, I will support them. Even though I've got my preferred candidate, who I think has talent, just because of his track record. He's composed himself really well. He's focused on his jobs. He wasn't involved in any pettiness. He's been delivering for the people of KMC. In my mind, he had a broader appeal to cross section of society compared to all the other choices that I was seeing. And then my conversation was also inspired by other people, like even within that Spanish event, a few young people would take me to the side, and they all say the same thing to me, that they rely on me because they see me as somebody who has influence and a voice to make certain things happen that we all were thinking about, but people within the periphery of power don't want to accept that fact. So not just at the event, when I joined the train going to the airport, I met some Gambians in the train who recognized me and came and told me the same thing. And when I arrived at this airport as well, I went to this shop at the airport to buy a bottle of water. There was a Gambian who works there who recognized me and came to me and said the same thing. But already I've made my mind that I would make a statement. And when I was leaving my hotel, I went to the receptionist and asked for a pen and a few sheets of paper. So I was like, this is going to be my 3 hour flight back to the UK. I will use that 3 hours to write a speech. And when I come to the UK, I would make the speech and say and then continue. I plan to make those like a series of conversation. That wasn't supposed to be the one and only, but I think it kind of created some sort of a commotion. Normally, I can be controversial, and when I make controversy, sometimes it doesn't go beyond 3 days. It will die down. But this one went 2 weeks. Like I'll wake up every morning with tons of notifications, tons of tags, people talking, people calling. So I kind of relaxed on it a bit. And at the same time, at one point, I wasn't very sure also about because I don't want to, I wasn't sure if there was some sort of an arrangement for renewal already, and that my action may be preempting that. So that kind of also contributed in me not continue to agitate continue to agitate, because I was gonna make it to be more intensified as we get along. But I tried to, but Talib, I could not discuss it with him because I don't know. I find this difficulty of talking to him about these things. I think it's mainly because he this leader figure that he is. It's the same feeling that I have ap- approaching Dabo about issues. I have this reluctance, and that's because of the respect he generally gives to people and the maturity that he always demonstrates. So I wasn't able to call him to discuss this with him. I tried to read from the people around him to understand his thinking, but most of them you can't get anything out of them. So I was in that dilemma of pushing or taking my time and see what happens. But that was just my thinking. But sometimes something would trigger it in my heart. And when it comes from the heart, then I don't think about anything else. I just say what I want. So it was a continuous agitation. I think there's just one point that I discussed with Talib, which was, I think at one point, discussion got to the tribal dimension when I think Nanama wrote the piece about if they are going to leapfrog Yangs in front of Talib, even though by any standard, Talib was a more of a senior member of the party, being on his second term and having delivered. And that second term was an important validation of his work. And just all the positions and the influence he generally holds. So wherever they try to put Yangs in front of him will be an unfair characterization of events. And so Talib, I think he made a public statement on video trying to discourage that kind of conversation. But the next day he phoned me and I was at work on my break. He said, I've got some people to put on the call. Are you okay with that? I said, yes. Then he added some senior UDP executive members, including Alajes Dabo. And that's when we had a chat about it. But I've never really had a conversation. That's why when I hear people saying Talib paid this guy, Talib paid these people to be on his side and do a bidding, I find it difficult to believe because I was like, Talib could have got me for free. I've got a voice and I can advocate for him. Actually, I've advocated for him when he first came to public light in 2018 when he was gonna go for mayor. I was in UDP then, but I endorsed him. And when the second term also, I was campaigning for him in public. So he could have got me for free on his side to do his political bidding, but Talib has never expressed his ambition to me that he wants to lead the UDP, and be a presidential candidate. Anything that I know about Talib's politics is always what I hear in his public interviews at Kerfatu and others. So the fact that I'm hearing these things that he was undermining the party, he was already doing his politics to undermine the party leader and stuff, I found it difficult to believe.
So, what is your position, though, in terms of people's assessment of the manner in which people, I mean, Talib left, for example, because I believe, I mean, UMC members always make a distinction that UMC is not Talib and Talib is not UMC, that UMC is going to change the party system or party politics in the Gambia to remove it from the idea of individual politics to institutional politics. But I'm curious, Talib initially opted to get into the UDP primary, and then eventually left. And part of what people say why he left is because he wants power. And he knows going head to head with Usain Dabo, which he agreed to do, by the way, through a democratic process that he has acquiescence to, and then later left and then went and initiated a movement. Now, some of the criticisms people make about him is the fact that he is not, in fact, a Democrat that he argues that, or he presents himself to be, because he could have respected the process and come at the end of the process. If he does not come out to be the flag bearer of the party, then he can go into 2031 for example, or thereabout. And other people also make the case, just to be fair, that the UDP internal democratic system is a facade created basically for what we know certainly is going to be an Oceano Dabo, flag bearership. What is your position in that respect?
First of all, let's be clear, there was no process and there has been no process in the past. Like you mentioned, is the facade. It's just, I think, me and Nana's agitation was what causes the party to adopt a semblance of democracy, but it's never been like that. We've heard previously when the selection process starts, people will apply, but they will applications will not even be acknowledged. But this time we had they made it open process where people were applied, they were interviewed, even though we all know what the ultimate decision would be. Because not only subjectively it was unfair, because Dabo being a party leader for many years, he have a lot of respect. People wouldn't want to contest, even when people put their application in. They don't go openly to campaign against him. So the place is reserved for him. And objectively, it was unfair in the sense that Dabo has a constitutional powers to bring people into the executive. So over the years, he has appointed many of his loyalists into the executive, and even with the selection process, the national executive was supposed to vote plus two individuals from each region to be part of the executive in decision making. I don't know how those two people were selected. I have a feeling Dabo's influence would also be there. But Talib, I didn't have much conversation with him in this area, but based on what my understanding was, he mentioned that he will not, um, if Dabo is interested, Anate Nyo Sabala
Yeah.
Wonyina.
Hmm.
He will not fight with him with it because he sees him to be a father figure and he's respect. He has a huge respect for Dabo. So Talib mentioned towards the end of the application, when it was open, the deadline, Talib wasn't privy that Dabo applied, and he applied. He took his time to wait till the very end, and he made his own inquiries, and he found that nobody, Dabo hasn't applied, and he applied. But then when it came to light, the names were published, and he knows Dabo applied. Then he just wanted, okay, but my promise was that I will do my HO work more about it. I will not push and pull. And so that's what exactly what he exercised. He went to Dabo and had a chat with him about it. And he seek Dabo's blessings to leave him to do, because he's very confident that he will defeat Barrow if he has a chance to lead UDP into 2026. But my understanding was Dabo also insisted that he's interested, and he also believed he will defeat Barrow. And the same time, so Talib withdrew from it, and which is consistent with the promise that he made. But by that time, things have gotten very toxic. There was a lot of breakdown in relationships within the party, its supporters, and many people were disgruntled on both sides. So I think eventually he decided his position as a organizing secretary is no longer tenable, because he is now seen to be conflicted. So he will just relinquish that position and let Dabo and the UDP to decide who will be able to help Dabo win elections. So eventually he took the back seat, and there was a moment of ambiguity. Nobody knew what his next move would be, what his next intention was. That also
We
coincided
all
with
knew.
his
I
dad,
think we all
with
knew,
his
you
dad's with his dad. No, it coincided with his dad's passing. His dad of blessed memory. So he's also going through some turbulent times. He wasn't allowed basically to mourn his party. His dad, he was being dragged to the commission for a whole day, being asked very foolish questions. Even though they have nothing at him, they just want to frustrate him and stain his character. But one thing I see in him was how strong he is. They couldn't break him, even though that was their mission to break him. But they couldn't break him even while at his lowest. He was mourning his dad at the time. But eventually, the dust settled a bit, and Dunda Badimbung, and we decided we're going to do this. And Alhamdulillah, the momentum is great. Gambians are very receptive of our ideas, and Talib is extremely sellable candidate. You call people, you more call ala kola, ikala kola tarabol bulu, near call. So it's very easy how you can get things. So right now we are on the path to register the party. We're working on the manifesto to get brilliant ideas how we're going to transform the country, and we continue to build structures, and we all remain committed. So he doesn't hold any official position in the party at the moment. It's only Kemo who hold an official position. So he's just an ordinary member, even though amongst all of us, he's the most popular. And so obviously, you gonna, as Nana Makeda would say, you cannot keep your Messi on the bench. So he's put as the face of the movement, not because we just want to favor him as a person, but that's because he's the best selling point. And that became through his track record, his charisma, and his normal engagement. Some of the extraordinary support that he gave to vulnerable people through some charity work, good gestures. There's many people who would tell me that what Talib did for them and stuff, and he would never talk about these things. So I love the brother, and I stand with him for the rest of this journey, inshallah.
So, my intention really is to keep this to an hour and a half, but just I promise you 10 minutes and I'll let you go. Just few more
No,
questions.
I'm good. It's Friday night. I have no plans. Let's
Awesome.
go.
Thank you. And thank you all to our audience who are here watching. A lot of you on YouTube, you're following. Please, again, just don't watch. Please subscribe on YouTube to support what we're doing. But Yunus, when you guys left, a lot of criticisms, like you said, it's a messy divorce. I think the divorce is still ongoing and there's still a lot of good and bad things said from both sides. And it's not just one side, right? And I'm just curious because of this idea of how we do politics and just how messy it could be sometimes. What is one single criticism that most people say about you and your colleagues at the UMC that really bothers you so much that you make it a point to make people understand that look, it's not even that serious. People have the right to be part of a party, and they also have the liberty to leave to go and set up another movement or political party if they want. But what are some of the criticisms that you sit down and be like, you can't even believe people conceive even the slightest possibility of thinking about uttering some of these criticisms publicly against some of you that have decided to leave UDP?
Yeah. So there are different things. I know, was it last week? Talib would always remind us to focus and leave the UDP alone and focus on our agenda. But one thing I always tell them, I've addressed them openly, I will try to leave UDP, but right now, UDP is the most hostile to us. And as long as they continue to be hostile to us, I cannot guarantee that I would leave them alone. I was like, this is not mutually exclusive. It's not like we can leave UDP alone and not focus on our, no, we can do both. And that's where we focus on building our policies and programs. We focus to sell the party. We also focus on countering the narrative that comes from other parties who are always likely looking to stain us. Kagambia dingol nyambunde mola, coming up with all sorts of lies. Many of it, all of it is lies because they don't know anything. But one thing, I think two things that affected my advocacy while we were in the UDP. One of them was that I was related to Talib. I'm related to Talib. Mbemu Sadauda Mama Ringwalad. So I mentioned that not
Related to him.
because
You
so
still,
that's not my reason.
okay.
That's not my reason to support Talib.
Okay.
Many of my close family members went to for this role, aspired to run, but I didn't support them. But the reason why I mentioned my relationship with Talib, because I believe that's what democracy, that's what honesty requires, which is when you are advocating, any bias that you may have, whether it's perceived or true, you have to declare it. You have to declare to say that um, this is what I have. But then you have it's your also your right to support anybody, regardless of what. So UDP were spinning that I am supporting family members over others, and I'm supporting Talib because of body and stuff. So that I must say it kind of weakened my hand on the advocacy truck. I admire folks like Nana Marketer on that because he declared he has no horse in this race. He
Right.
doesn't care. So he has a total freedom to express what he thinks. For me, even though I carried on, but that kind of bothered me a bit. And also another thing, after the branch off, many UDP folks were bombarding me that I misled Talib into leaving UDP. I misled Talib into committing a political suicide. Uh, so that kind of, even though I know that wasn't true, I have every time I say things, I've never phoned Talib to influence his thinking on anything. Anything Talib reads or gets from me directly politically, he saw it on my Facebook. I've written it there. I think there was only one time that I told him this. I texted him. I said, "We will be sight for possible branch off at this point. And we count on the Almighty God to guide us into the path of righteousness." That's exactly, that text is what I called for him. And that wasn't to say, come and join us or tell us this is what you wanted. What we're saying is we are mentally prepared for this now. We are committed and we are waiting for your move. So even though I've mentioned that to him, I left the decision in his hands and what he wants to do next. But after the branch off, I felt a bit pressured to see how this is gonna work out. I think because of the accusations that was going about me, so I was worried about if it fails. But I also mentioned something else to Talib in Seattle. I was like, this is a fact. It's not like an inspirational quote or anything. It's a fact that the most successful people in this world are people who pursued something and knowing at the back of of their mind, knowing that they have the freedom to fail. So having the freedom to fail is an important prerequisite for the world's most successful people at this point. That's because if you are worried about failing, that could be a restraint for you to act out of your comfort zone, or take a decision for the unknown. So I expressed concern about possible failure if we go through this. Failure in the sense of his overall well-being, and how he the loss that could be financial, physical. We live in the kind of society that we live, and there's a lot of pressure that could come from different angles. But what he told me was very inspirational, and I forgot exactly what he said, but what he was saying to me, that this is not about him. So anything that happened eventually cannot have any burden on him, in the sense that it's not about him and what he wants personally. That he is in this for the Gambian people. He believes he has what it takes to transform the country. He believes he has what it takes, the influence, the intellect, and the connection, the vast connection that he has around the world, to put Gambia at the right footing, where he will lift tons of people out of poverty. And that's consistent with what he said last time in our inaugural manifesto meeting, when we had a meeting to discuss how we're going to go about writing the manifesto. He was given the platform at first to outline his vision for the country, and it was mainly grounded on fighting poverty and giving all Gambians a fair chance in life. So I am impressed by his intellect. I'm impressed by the wisdom that he shows anytime he speaks. I am impressed by how grounded he is in his values and principles that he espoused, which very much aligned with mine as well. And I'm ready to sign my entire future on this course, inshallah.
It's funny, bro. You have become a full-fledged politician now. It's really interesting to listen to you. What as a
I
typical
know some of my friends in high school would tell me that the Yunus that they know is now very vocal. I was like, I used to be somewhat quiet. I wasn't very outspoken, but yeah, I enjoyed my life at Gambia High. I didn't mention that I went to Gambia High School, and my brother, my family always kind of told me that if I do well in school, they will pay to get me over to learn higher education at a place of my choice, and eventually that's what happened. I did my school in Gambia High School. I graduated, and eventually I got an offer in one of the colleges in the UK, and my family paid, and I came and just pursued. We didn't go into it. You sent me a structured list of questions. I think half of it we've not even gone through, but it's up to you though. If you have the time, I'm here.
No, no, bro. I know, for sure. I mean, to be fair to you, you've delved into a lot of issues that are very deeply interconnected, especially when it comes to the political bit of it. And I like to conclude stuff before we jump into something else. But I had Menteng here, Yahya Menteng Sanyang, National Assembly member and one of the founding members of United Movement for Change. And part of what he said is that UMC is not fundamentally in terms of programmatic areas from UDP, in terms of what they want to do, ideology, or maybe that's just Yaya's position, which perhaps could also be different from UMC. I don't want to confuse the two. But what I said to him is that, if you people are somewhat an extension of UDP and your only point of difference is that of the leader of UDP, could it be that if Usainu Dabo had not contested for the flag bearer of UDP, you guys would still have been part of UDP?
Repeat that, please. I was a little distracted.
If Dabo decide, for example, not to contest the flag bearer of UDP, would the establishment of UMC would not even have been an issue? You guys would still be part of UDP. Is that the case?
That's very true. It started with all our desire for renewal. We did not have the hope and confidence that Dabo will pull it off this time. We fought for him for many years, and it's not been possible. So we don't see this time being possible. So we want renewal. We want a fair democratic process to pick a new candidate, and whoever emerged from that would be our candidate. Talib, myself, Yaya Menteng, and all others, Ibrahim Adiba, will all rally behind. But we know what happened. And many of these folks knew that if they go to primaries with Talib without Dabo, Talib would be the favored person. And they've actually has put that in test. When Sabali, was it? No, yeah, Sabali's one was one of them. And also when, no, yes, when Sabali left and the campaign manager role became available, many of these, they put their candidate against somebody who is affiliated with Talib. So they tested their popularity, and Talib candidate, Karafa Sonko, defeated their candidate. So that's where they know that they are limited. Their influence is very much limited within the executive. And when they run against Talib, any of them that's aspiring to run will not. And that's when they all started to rally behind Dabo, because I know, and we all know, that these people initial position was Dabo to give way to somebody else. But then they went behind Dabo, push him, obviously Taraf and Atole. So eventually they succeeded. They only wanted to do that, not because they have confidence in him, but because they want to block Talib. And the only person that could, that has the influence to block Talib for them is Dabo. And that was their calculation, and noticed that. But this is what happened. KK bonding Olem, Sankai. Let's meet at the Momoela Ilambiro La Dala Sitai. Euroko. I bang Lord 26, inshallah.
So in terms of priority areas for UMC, and which is also connected to the last question that I asked, and it follow role, like the role that you're playing right now for them. What are your priority areas for the country? I had Talib here. I had the opportunity to talk with him as well. Again, the issue of UDP leadership is the main reason why you guys left, and now you have your own agenda. What are you selling to the Gambian people that is both fundamentally and radically different from UDP? Or is that none? Or also the programs areas are all very much the same?
So the main lesson that we learned from the UDP was to separate power. We have clear decisions. So one person would not be the Secretary General, party leader, flag bearer, which has been consistently the UDP. So we separated these portfolios. There'll be a chairman with specific responsibilities. There will be Secretary General, and there will be a flag bearer, and then there will be other executive positions. So what we did is mainly power sharing within the Constitution. I think that is obviously it's a work in progress in how we address some of the issues that we've learned in the UDP, but I think that's a good starting point. our manifesto wise, we're looking at different things. Obviously, right now I cannot speak at the position of the party. Manifesto has to be properly looked at, properly, and then adapted by the national executive for it to be the official positions of the party on different issues. But I think we are making significant stride for youth empowerment, women empowerment, and institutional reforms, constitution, tackling the high crime rate that is prevalent in the country. Just different things. But once those things are ready, you guys will be aware of it, and we will engage the public to discuss what programs that we are looking to initiate. But we want to help the youths. We know with the current back way going on, the circumstances of the youths is a desperate one. But what makes it even worse is the current circumstances is not just bad, but the future is also bleak. The future is very uncertain, and there is no guarantees that their condition will improve. That somebody who don't see anything for the future would take any risk because there's nothing for them in the country. But we want to put the future of the youths in their own hands, which is they will have an important representation within Talib's government. There will be guaranteed representation for young people within oversight bodies like anti-corruption watchdog, procurement, oversight functions will be given. That way we are putting trust in the hands of young people, and they can obviously evaluate the process. They will be able to see how their mega resources is being managed and how it's being invested into their future. So I have a feeling those things will at least allay one of their concerns to say it's bad right now, but there's no guaranteed it will be better in the future. But if we put the future in their hands or their ability to safeguard how the trajectory of the country runs into the future in their favor, I think that would at least allay the hopelessness that is prevalent among young people.
Now, we've not gone into your profession in the UK. I've been intentional. I want to give you the liberty if you want to get into your background now in terms of what you do. But you've also been very vocal in terms of your advocacy about the healthcare in the Gambia and governance, especially the performance of the current government of President Adama Barrow. So I
Oh,
was
you
just
seem to
curious.
be breaking up. I don't know.
Yes, I think it's my internet or yours. I'm not sure, but can you hear me? Yunus, are you with me? Yunus, are you with me?
Mhm.
Yunus, can you hear me? Yunus, am I
Yeah,
okay, good. So
I can hear you.
yes, thank you very much. And I'm sorry about that. It's the internet is beyond our control. But I do would like to know whether your interest in commentary on the health system of the Gambia is based on your profession or part of what you study or part of what you're doing right now. Where does this come from? Where does your specific interest in the healthcare of the Gambia? So much so you go so far to even raise money for people who need medical support in the Gambia. Where does this come from?
It seems like internet.
We're struggling with our internet.
I don't know
Yes,
if it's
I can hear you. Maybe it's mine, Eunice, but I can hear you.
no. It's like I think because I'm just next to the sea, so maybe that's what's interfering.
Well, we're good now.
So
Can you hear
good.
me now?
Yeah. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Yeah, so I was basically
Okay,
just
good.
asking about your interest in the Gambian healthcare and whether that stems from your professional interest or professional work in the UK. I mean, even though we've not got into that, I've left that blanket to give you the liberty if you want to get into that, because people are also curious about this guy,
About who? Me?
Yunus, and yes, and some of
All
his.
right. So my interest in healthcare started by different factions. I remember my mom had a stroke in Gambia. She was my ustaz, like I said, and she had a first episode of stroke, and she recovered from it, but she lost her memory, and I saw what went on, and I actually was proud because after that happened, she lost her memory. I took over the data. I was able to teach myself and teach the younger ones, and I remember when I was at nursery, I used to recite the Quran at the assembly. So I was vast in that. But then she had a second episode of stroke. I was in Gambia then, and when we took her to hospital, what they told me was that they don't have the facilities to do the interventions that she needed at the time. So at that time, we were very crazy about what to do. Then we decided to get an ambulance and get her quickly to Senegal for treatment. The first two hospitals that she went to were full to the brim, and she wasn't taken on. So even though I understand the rationale that obviously if the hospital is full, they cannot admit her, and that kind of, even though I rationalize it that way, but part of me also have this feel sadness that my mom was being rejected while at her most vulnerable state. So eventually they found a hospital. Um, I went to, I remember I was working night shift. I sent money for them, but for some reason, I don't know if it's, I made Western Union to be paid in 24 hours. I was just confused. That's how I said it, to be paid to them. And then by the end of my night, when I was going home, I was feeling, oh man, these people may need money urgently in Senegal, and they wouldn't eat it. I need to change it. But then I was tired, so I slept. And then I was sleeping during the day because I was night shift. I had my phone rang. I picked the call. I thought it was them. I was like, "Oh, sorry, I'm just about to get dressed and go to Western Union so that you get the money instantly." And it was my cousin on the phone. She said, "No, that's not what the problem is. Your mom has passed away." So it was so emotional. I reflected on different moments. I thought about how I was told in Gambia that my there was no the equipment that they need for interventions weren't available. Then I thought about how Yaya Jame was buying all these cars, top of the range, thousands of them that some of them he wouldn't even get to use, and then our healthcare was in that dire state. Um, that kind of get me slightly into the thinking. Also, my brother in Seattle, you probably met him. He's called Mustafa Hydra, Dr. Mustafa Hydra. He's also a person of great importance to me because he is one person. I say this to myself. They say there's no perfect human being, but if I know somebody who is perfect or next to perfect, it's him. He's ticked all the boxes: generosity in spirit, love for humanity, and everything. His life is like a guiding light for me, and even though when we were in Gambia, he was my best advocate when I went to high school. He made sure I have a good life in high school where transportation would not be issue, dressings and some. You know what how high school folks like, which is. I think I was the first to have a watch that has a radio as well. So I was getting some nice stuff from gifts from America, and then he also continued to support me. So I think getting into healthcare was much greatly influenced by him, him being a doctor in the U.S. Also, I tried to get into healthcare at first when I phoned the universities to make some inquiries, but what I was told is I can't. They don't the qualification that I've got at Gambia High is not what accepted. I have to get an A level, UK A level education. So I said, can I go and register and take an A level? And they said, no, we take it at school, high school. That's the one and they then suggested there's a college that gave access to medicine and I could go through that. But the thing is, it wouldn't be guaranteed I could go through that and then I wouldn't be accepted. So I thought about, okay, wasting my time and energy going through college for access there and then eventually being turned down, that would be difficult. So I decided, even though it's always appealed to me that I have to achieve higher education, it's kind of some of the moments that I remember my mom uh, advising me and my brothers. They thought I had the potential, so I should go for it. I, but then I thought about what's the next step. What can I do? Then that's when I kind of thought about science, because science grow at secondary school. When I reflect on why I choose science, one of the reasons that comes to mind was one of my secondary school teacher, Mr. Qureshi. I once wrote about him on social media. He's from Sierra Leone, but he is so passionate and he put a lot of enthusiasm into his subject in his teaching. And so he made science a very interesting and captivating subject. It was that captivating that his lessons would not, I won't miss it. And not only I will go home and study, but I will even me and my friends who were on the same in our jotais and stuff, we'll be discussing science and some of the stuff. So science became my option. And high school, it went like that. Even when I wasn't a very serious student, my best grades were science. I was like, okay, I didn't choose science. Science chose me. But then I also have this reluctance because in Gambia, I think there's this perception that you have to be a kind of a genius to be a scientist. You have to learn. You have to be very smart. Um, so I didn't choose science to do pure science in Gambia High. But even though Gambia High has a strong reputation for science, even if you are not doing science, you do science as general science, but you still do different subjects separately. So you do chemistry on its own, you do physics, you do biology. So uh, it was still a very strong academic record for me. And that's when then I decided to go into science to become a scientist. I studied biochemistry in Edinburgh Uni. It was one of the top universities in the world. It was ranked 17th best university in the world when I joined. I was told not to join though when I was applying. They said, look at other universities. It's very competitive to get into Edinburgh. But I applied for three different subjects. I was offered for two of them. So I went in and reflecting on that part of it, I'll tell people never really be intimidated by a subject. You go for what you believe in. Just make sure you get the basics to your fingertips. Get the basics straight. When once you have a good grasp of the basics, you will not be stopped if there's a passion. Successful people in this world did not have goals; they have obsessions. They went for things that they are obsessed with. And there's this story that I read. This person, he died. No, he didn't die. Sorry. His parents, I think his mom, threw him. They threw him to the Sundukumodo, basically, in the UK. And then he was then adopted by somebody. And that guy, after learning that he was found at the Sundukumodo, at the dump, he focused on the dump. He became a millionaire for making dump into something valuable and made millions from it. So another thing that influenced me into that was I was while I was studying biochemistry at uni, I was also hosting a program on Fata Network. I call it Health and Science Program. I initiated that because my observation in the public about how our people reason when something happens, to look at it from a critical point of view in which lessons can be learned. I don't see it. It's like when someone dies, he it's just about rest in peace. It's just about charity for the person. But to me, in my mind, it's about some of these deaths can be prevented. They are of preventable causes. When I listen to some of the people dying, I know they don't have accurate diagnosis of their condition or treatment. At the point of death, do they even get resuscitated? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. I know all this because I learned later on, even the intensive care unit in Gambia do not have fibrilus, that thing that you use to inject electricity
Okay.
to
Okay.
restart the heart. Defibrillators, they are called. We didn't have that. So that's health of science was mainly to try and entice young Gambians to pursue science and to also discuss the cause and effect relationship, because that's science. Our people look at effect, which is the manifestation of what they say, and they rationalize it in ways that I believe wasn't right. So we can attribute all this for God, but God also told us to learn. God also advised us to make efforts. So prayer or whatever should be a complement to practical approach in problem solving. It's not a matter of just leaving it to God. And I think I remember Patrick Lumumba saying an African will pray for what he can work for, and that's not the divine instruction. And that's very true. We dwell more on prayer than other things rather than looking critically at the causes and try to learn why these things are happening. Because at the end of the day, that's what science is all about. They try to understand manifestation. That some of the things that we're seeing happening follow certain laws of nature, and I think that's how God exerts things through the laws of nature. God don't sit and say, "Oh, Ibrahim, I don't have the pass today. Let me maybe get Yunus to swing by him and give him something to eat." I think there are certain things that are happening through the laws of nature, and people who understand these laws and position themselves in ways, intelligent ways around it, are people who can mitigate the wrath of these laws of nature and harness their benefits. For us, we are doing things randomly not thinking properly about them, and we are having both the negative and the positive side of it. So it was part of my advocacy to discuss science. Healthcare conversation also will come in. People will call in and discuss their experience about the failing healthcare system in the Gambia. So eventually, it kind of molded me in that direction. I studied science. I went studied masters in studied drug discovery, which is more medical research, drug design, and trying to look at certain illnesses and how they're caused, what enzymes are involved, or what receptors are involved, and how you could either block them or be an agonist to them that was give them to have their normal physiological function, and that way you correct the problem. And that's what I was doing. And but I've then decided to do a second master's to get me into the healthcare, and that's where I am just now.
So, just to get that, you are. This is
Hey,
interesting.
I'm good.
Oh,
Ibrahim. Let's let me say, uh,
go ahead.
what is being said in the comments? I'm not even able to see the comments.
I'm not seeing the comments
So,
too.
but
Don't
I
worry.
can say I am passionate in healthcare. That's the field that I'm getting in. That mean, and I'm enjoying my work and how I grow into the field. And I believe eventually that expertise or whatever will be translated to Gambia, and that's what I'm hoping. So I have a strong scientific background, which give me the acumen for problem solving, understanding, and not being analytical, and different things, and healthcare experience, also complementing that, solving problem, facilitating healing, alleviating suffering, and helping people to live a life that they deserve. And that will continue to build myself. I'm taking all that opportunity to build myself to because I believe I have a potential. I believe that my mom is proud of some of the things that I've done and some of the things that I've achieved. I just hope that I wish she was here to see it, but I'm sure she's aware. She is my guiding angel. I love humanity. I love Gambians. I wish my best for my people. And the limited influence that I have, I will do everything to help my people. And my mother is my everything. Like I said, all that I am or ever hope to be, I owe it to my angel mother, my hero. Thanks very much, bro. I think I'll go now. It's good to have to be here, but if you need me again, we can delve into these specific issues at your own time.
No, I,
Okay?
I
God
appreciate it.
bless.
Thank you so much, Eunice.
God
Thank you.
bless. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us too. It's been a wonderful